Welcome to the deep dive. Where we deep dive into all sorts of fascinating topics, and today we're going to be exploring the emotional landscape of men.
Oh, very interesting.
And our source material, you might not believe it, it's a Reddit thread
Okay.
with the title, Are a Lot of Men Secretly Sad?
Hmm. That's an interesting place to start, but I can see how that could be a really rich source of information.
Exactly. I mean, it's just this treasure trove of
Mm.
raw, unfiltered thoughts and feelings. And, of course, we're not trying to draw scientific conclusions from a Reddit thread.
Of course not.
But it does give us this really fascinating glimpse into the pressures and expectations that men are grappling with in today's world.
For sure. And I think what's going to be really interesting is to see what kind of recurring themes emerge. Are we going to see a lot about masculinity? Are we going to see a lot about the pressure to succeed, emotional expression, or the search for meaning and purpose?
And right from the start, one comment that just jumped out at me was, most men lead lives of quiet desperation. And the thread just exploded with agreement. It was like this really profound statement that so many men related to.
It's like it gave words to something that they had maybe been feeling but hadn't been able to articulate.
Yeah, and it makes you think about, the contrast between outward appearances
Yeah.
and then what's actually going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, and a good example of that is a user called crazy3593, who describes having everything that society typically deems as successful, a good career, a family, but feeling totally burnt out, overwhelmed, and unappreciated.
Right, so it challenges that assumption that, checking off all of those traditional boxes is going to automatically lead to happiness.
Right.
And, really ties into another theme that came up a lot, the burden of providing.
Yeah, and one user, NeuralGap, put it really well when they said, men are valued for what they can provide, not for who they are.
Mm-hmm.
And that idea that a man's worth is tied to his ability to be the provider, that really resonated throughout the thread.
And it's not just about, providing financially. There's also this expectation that men have to be strong and stoic problem solvers,
Right.
often at the expense of their own emotional well-being.
Yes, absolutely. And that pressure to be the strong, silent type can be incredibly isolating.
For sure.
One user, Downtown Smile 7991, shared that the whole man up mentality that he was raised with had a really devastating impact on his mental health. He bottled up all his emotions until he reached a breaking point and realized he needed to seek help.
And his story is a powerful reminder that suppressing emotions can have really serious consequences.
Definitely.
It's like men are caught in this impossible situation, express your feelings and risk being seen as weak, or keep it all inside and just suffer in silence.
It's a dangerous cycle for sure, and I think it speaks volumes about the need to really redefine what it means to be a man in today's world.
Yeah, and it's interesting because while there's so much pain and frustration expressed in this thread, there are also these glimmers of hope. There are men who are actively breaking free from these really restrictive norms.
Right, like user Baza Kadabra, who decided to prioritize fun and family time over chasing material success.
Yeah.
And he even encourages his kids to embrace happiness above all else.
I love that it's like he's creating a new model for what it means to be a man.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just him. Other users shared coping mechanisms that were helping them find more balance and fulfillment, things like therapy, pursuing hobbies, and really engaging in open communication with their partners.
It shows that even in the midst of all these challenges, there are pathways toward, greater well-being.
Right. And it all starts with acknowledging the problem and being willing to challenge those really deeply ingrained societal expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, too, because as much as this thread, highlights this collective kind of sadness or disillusionment, it also goes into some pretty controversial territory.
Yeah, it definitely does. You see comments about the challenges men face in family courts and the pressure to suppress their emotions and frustrations with certain aspects of modern feminism. I mean, it's a minefield of potentially divisive topics.
It is. And it would be really easy to just, shy away from those conversations. But I think it's important to try to understand where these sentiments are coming from.
Absolutely. Engaging with critical thinking means we don't have to agree with every viewpoint expressed, but we should try to understand, the fears and frustrations and experiences that are shaping these perspectives.
So even if we disagree with a particular viewpoint, we can still try to empathize with the person who's expressing it.
Precisely. Instead of just dismissing an idea outright,
Right.
ask yourself what might lead someone to hold this belief? What are they trying to communicate? And I think that approach allows for much more nuanced and productive conversations.
It's about recognizing the complexity of the issue
Right.
and avoiding oversimplifications.
Exactly. And I think this Reddit thread, while anecdotal, provides a really valuable glimpse into the diverse experiences and perspectives of men today. It reveals this yearning for deeper connection, this need to challenge these outdated notions of masculinity, and a desire to find meaning and purpose in a world that often feels very chaotic.
So if we kind of step back and consider the bigger picture, what can we learn from this deep dive into the emotional landscape of men?
I think a key takeaway is the importance of acknowledging the silent struggles that so many men face. We often hear about the pressures that women experience, but this thread really sheds light on the unique challenges that men are navigating as well.
Yeah, it's like we're finally starting to recognize that, men have feelings too, and that those feelings deserve to be acknowledged and validated.
Right, and it challenges us to rethink our assumptions about what it means to be a man. Is it about stoicism and suppressing emotions and being the breadwinner at all costs? Or is there a more nuanced and compassionate definition of masculinity that allows for vulnerability and emotional expression and a more balanced approach to life?
It seems like we're kind of stuck with this outdated model of manhood that isn't really serving anyone, least of all men themselves.
Yeah, this thread in its own raw and unfiltered way is a call for a much needed update to that model. It reminds us that men are hurting and that ignoring their pain isn't going to make it go away.
So where do we go from here? What can we as individuals and as a society do to kind of address these challenges and create a more supportive environment for men?
Well, I think for starters, we can simply listen, truly listen with empathy and without judgment. When a man opens up about his struggles, resist the urge to dismiss him with a man up or a get over it. Validate his feelings, let him know that he's not alone.
It's about creating a space where men feel safe to be themselves without fear of judgment or ridicule.
Exactly. We can also challenge those harmful stereotypes about masculinity. Let's celebrate men who show vulnerability, who express their emotions, who prioritize their well-being. Let's redefine what it means to be a real man.
And let's not underestimate the power of simply checking in on the men in our lives. A simple, "How are you doing?" can go a long way.
Absolutely. It's about letting them know that we care, that we see them, and that we're there for them if they need us.
As we've been talking about these challenges,
hmm
one thing that's really stuck with me is this overwhelming sense of isolation that so many men expressed in that Reddit thread.
Yeah, I think that's such an important point. So many of the comments, spoke to this feeling of not having anyone to talk to or being afraid to be a burden or just this reluctance to show any sign of weakness.
It's heartbreaking to think about all these men out there suffering in silence, feeling like they have to carry the weight of the world all by themselves.
Absolutely. And it really highlights the urgent need for, spaces where men feel comfortable connecting with each other and sharing their experiences and offering support.
Yeah, we need to move beyond just, those superficial guys' nights out, where the only acceptable emotions are laughter and competition.
Right. It's about fostering those deeper connections, encouraging vulnerability, and creating a culture where men feel safe being emotionally open with each other.
And that starts with each of us, being willing to listen, to offer support, and to really challenge those toxic stereotypes about masculinity.
Absolutely. Every time we speak up against those outdated ideas about what it means to be a man, we're taking a step toward creating a more compassionate and understanding world.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening for me. I feel like I have a much better understanding of the challenges that men face and the ways in which we can all contribute to creating a more supportive environment for them.
Me too. And what's so encouraging is that this conversation is just the beginning. We need to keep talking, keep listening, and keep challenging ourselves to create a world where men feel empowered to embrace their full emotional selves.
This has been such a thought-provoking discussion, and if any of you listening want to explore these themes further, I highly recommend checking out Shauna Pelage's YouTube channel.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to dive deeper into personal growth, self-awareness, and understanding the complexities of human experience.
And of course, don't forget to subscribe to Voices of the Soul for more deep dives like this one.
We release new episodes every week, and we'd love for you to join our community of listeners.
Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of our future conversations.
Yes.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this question to ponder: what small step can you take today to challenge those harmful stereotypes about masculinity and support the men in your life?
It could be as simple as checking in on a friend offering a listening ear, or speaking up when you hear someone perpetuating those outdated ideas about manhood.
Every action, no matter how small, can contribute to creating a more compassionate and supportive world for everyone.
Well said, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the often hidden world of men's emotions.
We hope this has sparked some reflection, some empathy, and maybe even some inspiration to make a positive difference in the lives of the men around you.